Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Here comes the judge, or in this case, here come the judges. It's now clear to anyone who is not deaf, dumb, and blind, frankly, that the Democrats are using the courts to accomplish what they couldn't accomplish at the ballot box, which is basically to stop Donald Trump at any cost. There are now over a dozen injunctions out there to date issued by various courts, specifically selected courts, by the way: deportation, birthright citizenship, DOJ, federal funding, free DEI programs be eliminated, transgender, all the things that Trump is trying to put into effect is being challenged by the courts. So we have one word: predictable. But in case everybody missed the Constitution 101 course, these are supposed to be co-equal branches of government. I want to know when the judiciary became more powerful with more authority than the executive branch. And why is it that a district judge is allowed to make a ruling in DC that affects the entire country, but the president, who's elected by the entire country, is not allowed to unless he gets approved by a judge, right? I mean, am I missing something here? But I have an idea. Brilliant as usual. Maybe the president should take a poll of all the judges before he enacts any executive decisions or executive orders. No, I don't think that's practical either. Seriously, I want people who are listening to the show now, right? You can comment if you're listening. Name one judicial order that Donald Trump or the Trump administration has ignored. Because all you hear from the rule of lawyers, right? Rule of law, rule of lawyers, those guys, is that there's a constitutional crisis coming. It's constitutional crisis. And if Trump doesn't obey the judicial decisions, that he's bringing on a constitutional crisis. So my question is, are we so sure that the current legal system is functioning properly that it's really Trump who's bringing on this constitutional crisis? Because it's already been clear since 2008 that there's a dual justice system in place, and there's been a weaponization of the various agencies, and now the judiciary as well. So why not the courts? Makes sense to me. So is it really Donald Trump who's bringing on this constitutional crisis? Let's look back. Obama, the NSA wanted to continue the bulk data collection, was ruled illegal. They did it anyway. Obama, same thing. The NSA, the searchless warrants, which, by the way, occurred both during the Bush administration and the Obama administration in 2010. The judge comes back and says illegal. They did it anyway. Affordable Care Act as well. They implemented certain aspects that the courts said were illegal. President Biden, no different. Section 702 of the NSA Act, which was FISA, allowed to collect foreign information, ruled illegal. They did it anyway. And let's not forget Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program, and their list goes on. Now, as for this Judge Boasberg or however you pronounce his name, if you really want proof that he's biased, I would give you two things to consider. Number one, he issued his ruling when he only listened to one side of the argument. He did not allow the government to present its case. He listened to the plaintiffs and ruled. Number two, even more egregious. This is what happens when I get all worked up and salivate, right? Even more egregious was that usual and customary is you allow the other side time to appeal, which he did not do. He did not give the government time to appeal. So this whole concept, judge shopping, of course they're judge shopping. Anybody really surprised by that? I mean, keep in mind, this is from the party of Senator Schumer, who, if you remember during the election, talked about, quote, expanding the court, which was another version of FDR's packing the courts. But that's, now you know why, because none of this is new. None of this is new with using the courts to get what you want, then you can't get it at the ballot box. And none of this is new, this now talk about reforming the judiciary on either side of this. There was the Judiciary Act of 1801. John Adams, president, also called the Midnight Judges Act. There was then the Judiciary Act of 1802. Next year, Thomas Jefferson, which undid the prior act. There was a Judiciary Act of 1869. There was one in 1911. And let's not forget FDR's court packing, which was defeated, of course. And if you want to know what any of those were, look it up. But it's not like, oh my God, you can't mess with the courts. Because when you hear all this talk about constitutional crisis, don't believe it. Not true. Trump is rightfully asserting his executive authority, and he's pushing the boundaries a little bit from what's been usual and customary in the last 20, 30, 40 years. But all of this is going to go to the Supreme Court. There was, by the way, a federal court of appeals, Ninth Circuit, just did a ruling we're going to talk about in the show when we get into it. But it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and Trump will win most of them. He won't win all of them. But to me, the most important question that no one is asking is the following. In a system of checks and balances, short of impeachment, what mechanism, what body exists, what remedy exists to check an out-of-control judiciary? Answer that one for me. And that's the monologue.